do you think maybe Anthony Fauci logged into YouTube because less than 48 hours he has taken a walk? But Neil, isn't the issue the fact that folk like him who have caused so much damage to societies are able to leave on their own terms? It doesn't feel just.
Well, yes. I mean, in the case of Anthony Fauci at 81, he must have been thinking about stepping away anyway. Perhaps long before he was engulfed in the COVID debacle. I think the point I was making on Saturday night was, on the one hand, you might say that these people should be sacked, and they should, to be honest. But really, my desired preferred outcome would be that some of them would have the self-awareness to realise that they were out of their depths and that decisions that they made and actions that they took were simply wrong. The fact that all of them are in place, stubbornly in place, and already keen to move on, sweeping debris under rugs as they go, apart from anything else, shows a glaring lack. It's a lacking in their characters. I would have hoped that people occupying such elevated positions would acknowledge when they have done extremely wrong, when they have extremely wrongly, and made severe mistakes, and that they would have the self-awareness to step away themselves. I suppose it's a fantasy, it's a wish list, but rather than having to be sacked, I would have hoped that people so far up the food chain would realise and walk away.
You're right. And isn't it also about working out what happens in the future? The next time a virus is released from a lab in Wuhan or North Korea or God knows Russia, who knows what country is next going to try and upset the ecosystem of the Western world. And these folk, Neil, have to admit that they got this stuff wrong, because otherwise we're going to head into this catastrophe again, because lockdowns now at the top of the public health playbook when they were never there previously.
You're exactly right, Dan. Implicit in their turning a blind eye to what they did, in sweeping the wreckage under the carpet, implicit in that is that they would do it again. We've seen some of them already when questioned. Some of the leadership candidates not ruling out, not taking off the table the possibility of doing it all again. That's what's even more terrifying, really. That's what's even more galling. Given that the lockdown, I mean, before we even get into vaccines, given that lockdown has undoubtedly, indisputably caused catastrophic damage, the consequences of which we will be dealing with, long after you and I are gone. Those accounts will be glowing red hot if those accounts are still open. And the fact is that's demonstrable from what they're not saying is that they haven't learned anything. That if they felt that their backs were against the same wall, they may well look to lock down again, to bring back masks, just to go for COVID 2.0. That's what really alarms me. The fact that they're still there, that there have been no proper acknowledgements, far less apologies, suggests that all of the same tools are in the toolbox, and if they feel so minded, they will bring them all out again.
And Neil, isn't it so sinister that you've got this massive excess death toll now? We can see it. These are official ONS government statistics. And in the past, the likes of the BBC and Sky News and ITV News, when it was COVID excess deaths, they were trumpeting these figures on a sometimes hourly basis to terrify the population. Now that these are excess deaths caused most likely, or at least the vast majority most likely, by the impact of lockdowns and by adverse effects from vaccines, they don't seem to want to talk about excess deaths anymore, Neil.
It is extraordinary. I've seen reliable figures, quoted by Dr. John Campbell, and he works from ONS data, going as high as in excess of 1,400 excess deaths per week at the moment. And within that, there's the possibility that it's even higher on account of the way that data is collected. That's an extraordinary figure. 1,400 people a week dying, not of COVID, but of goodness knows what else. Open brackets, what about the vaccines, close brackets. It's absolutely terrifying. And yes, as you rightly point out, the deafening silence from so much of the mainstream media, which, as you rightly point out, couldn't report the so-called COVID deaths quickly enough. They couldn't find a point size big enough for their headlines when it was about COVID deaths. And this unwillingness, or this apparent inability to see the damage that is manifesting itself in the form of these excess deaths is truly terrifying. And you have to wonder, rather than try to make excuses for it all the time, I try to apply, or I have to apply Occam's razor, go for the simplest explanation. They are determinedly and deliberately not reporting it, because it's not part of the agenda and the narrative that they were looking to pursue and to report for so long. And so they simply have to pretend that the elephant is not in the room, that they can't see it. But there's no way they haven't seen it, and there's no way that those same reporters don't know. They just, because it's too big. The mistake is too big. There's no way to if you admitted to it, if you admitted to the mistakes made, to all of those errors, you would have no alternative but to walk away. The only way these people, journalists included, can seek to stay in post is by pretending that none of it ever happened. It's like Bobby Ewing in the shower. They've just done away with all of those episodes from the season just past.
It never happened.
None of that happened.
Never happened.
Here we still are.
Yeah. Well, we won't let them forget, because this isn't a conspiracy. These are cold, hard statistics, and these folk were warned.